So what we want to talk about, Daniel gave us a quick breakdown, what makes or breaks the play experience, how Florida Course are managing increase in traffic successfully, and what are the tools that they're implementing. And also just looking at some measurements and data on the back end. So obviously data is something that's very important to us as a business, and we learn a lot from it, just in terms of the Florida traffic that we are seeing at our customer base. It's been interesting because a lot of people are using 2019 as a benchmark, because 2020 was such an outlier, with clubs obviously having to close their gates for a period and then having this massive run on the game. And a lot of clubs would have seen a 20, even higher percent year-on-year increase in play in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and as we all got used to new normals. So the question is, how does 2021 stack up against our 2019 benchmark? And what we are seeing is, while it may not be quite as much as 2020 did, but we're still over 20% up in play versus 2019. So this is obviously fantastic for golf. More demand, more traffic, more play, but it also comes with challenges. Joey, you obviously go out and see many clubs. One of the things that you come across is that they're all so busy, aren't they? So what are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of play volume, and what are the trends out there?
Yeah, extremely busy. Some of the trips I've just gotten back from where these guys are struggling to keep golf carts in play for themselves because they have so many people showing up. It's not just the golf carts, it's the amount of walkers that are coming to a course now. So the volume you can see it physically at the courses these days. Tee times are running 8 to 11 minutes. And people are going off like crazy out here right now. So, in fact, I'm up at a course today and they're already packed. It's very early. They're already pretty full.
Yeah, I think this obviously has been one of the miracles, I suppose, of this pandemic, right? That golf happened to be in a position to be considered safe, and we all get to see the benefits of the increase. However, it does come with challenges too, right? Because there are a lot of new players that are joining, and you have to match their experience with more experienced players out there that maybe also want to play a little bit quicker and maybe don't lose as many balls like I do. And also, well, it's a big challenge for the greenkeepers, right? Because now traffic up means the wear and tear is up. So those are some of the things that we want to talk to, and also look at what are the Florida clubs doing to stay in the game and counter that, and be prepared for it as well. So just as a quick introduction, Tag Marshal is a golf course optimization system. We now work with over 350 clubs. We are very blessed in that in the number of years that we've been in the game, since 2014, we have grown to work with over 30 of the top 100. So in your top row, there's quite a few of the household private clubs, including Baltusrol and Oakmont, Hazeltine, some of the big major hosts, Boca West, obviously one of the Florida highlights. Then in the daily fee space, I think this year we've got 2 majors being hosted with the Phil Mickelson show at Kiowa. You played there. Was your score? Would you have given Phil a run for his money, or not, Phil? Joey?
Oh no, not even close. It's a beautiful course, and it's well maintained. They do a great job of making you feel very special going to that course.
Yeah, no, phenomenal. I got to meet the team there at Kiowa, and it's just the most amazing tour. So Whistling Straits, it's the next major that's up and coming. That's at Whistling Straits, the Ryder Cup, and then obviously Pebble Beach, Bandon Dunes, another amazing place. And also overseas there in Scotland and Ireland, we've got quite a few good partners. we are tech partners to the European Tour and also help the USGA and the R&A where we can, especially with data and just adding value to the industry wherever possible. But what's important here is why obviously we're immensely proud that we work with these top tier clubs, and we're learning a lot from their managers as well, and as to what's important to them. The majority of our clubs are really the middle of the road, your $35 green fee, just the decent private clubs. And that's where most of our clubs are sitting, and that's where most of our new clubs are coming from. And that's also where we believe will make the biggest impact in the industry. In terms of Florida clubs that we work with, there's quite a nice list now, both North and South. Yeah, so Serenora, Legacy are quite well known. Tiger Point, love the logo. You've been to a few of them, haven't you there, Joey?
Yeah, I have. I've been to Banyan, been down to Boca West. Haven't made it to Tiger Point yet. That's on my list. And I definitely want to go see Leo over at Scenic Hills. It's a great guy.
Yeah, so again, it's a mix of private clubs and some daily fees. Sandwich is a Mooney over in Vero Beach. It's extremely successful with our program and very busy. Forest Glen, I believe, is the oldest in terms of our customer history club in obviously over in Naples. So yeah, looking to add value where we can. We normally start our conversation with just getting the crowd involved a little bit with the poll. What makes or breaks a play experience, just as a bit of a check. Out of these options here: course design, course conditioning, clubhouse and amenities, pace and flow of play, playing partners, as in who's in my group. The famous "don't pair us with that single that's just rocked up." Accessibility, tee times, availability, and value and cost. Out of those, Joey, what would you say are the key experience factors in your many years as a player, having been on many golf tours and obviously also working in the industry?
Yeah, I think for me, it's course conditioning is probably number one. Pace of play would be number two. Course design would be number three. I mean, you can go out and you can have the best course design possible, but if the course isn't in great shape, it's going to deter people. And if your pace of play is, a 5.5 hour round, that's going to deter a lot of people as well.
No, absolutely. So often we're seeing value rise to the top, right? But what does value really consist of, right? So generally, it's the understanding of, well, this course is well conditioned and it plays nicely in terms of there's a good flow on the course, and that to many people is value, right? So those are the things we want to get right. This is our opinion, right? But often with these polls, and the USGA has done their own poll where they asked 20,000 players, and they came back with, indeed, course conditioning comes out top. 82% of players believe it's crucial to their enjoyment, and the clubs know that well enough, because when it comes to budget, it's normally a case of as much as possible, right? As much as we have, we want to put into conditioning. Interestingly enough, very close to that at 74% is pace, flow, time it takes to play. That's crucial, a crucial factor as well. So if we're asking what makes or breaks a player experience, both of these are very important. I've got a little bit more research also from the USGA that was presented at the Golf Innovation Symposium, which was held in Tokyo, where we just had the recent Olympics golf tournament played out, both men's and ladies. And what their researchers did, which included Professor Christina Schoonover from the University of Wisconsin, and she is also the director of operations of golf operations at Erin Hills, one of our partners. So we've gotten to know her well over the years, and she really has been instrumental in designing a world-class experience at Erin Hills, but also obviously is a world-class researcher. And the USGA has mandated her and her colleague to look at what are the experience factors in golf, what really matters to the players. And they went over, I believe, an 18 months period and mapped out 1,000 touch points in the golfer experience, 1,000 touch points, and that includes putting your golf bag in your trunk. That includes driving through the gate at the club. That includes the burger and beer afterwards. Those are all parts of an experience and a touch point, including booking around. And they wanted to know which of these float to the top when it comes to delighting players, and which of these are hurting the experience when it comes to frustrating players. So frustrator and delighter is the range, and obviously there's neutral experiences too. And they found that positive ranger etiquette scores top as a delighter, because I believe it's just it's so unusual. Like, players don't expect it. Positive ranger etiquette, a positive ranger experience, is so unexpected by players that when it does happen, they think, oh my God, this person's just made my day, because I expected him to come over and say, hey, you're slow, get on with it. But I had a positive experience, made my day, right? Similar, green and open tees, we want things to move. So those things float very high. But the top delighter is positive ranger etiquette. And that is something that is just so unexpected. On the flip side, corrective pace of play action is the overall worst score. So players hate it when somebody comes over and says, hey, guys, pick it up, you're slow. The conundrum is other people's speed, other players' speed is equally as frustrating. So the conundrum is very obvious, Joey, right? The players are saying, don't come to me and say, to me, I'm slow, but I don't want other people to be slow. And please do something about that, so I'm not being held up. In your experience, are you one of those guys who tips the ranger so he doesn't shout at you, or what do you do?
Aside from tipping them, you get to know them a little bit, and have that interaction. And the best courses will obviously have those rangers who get out and interact with the golfers on the course, and present themselves very well. So it's using Tag Marshal to do that enhances that, where these guys are going out and they have data. They're not guessing anymore who the slow group is, because we've all been in that situation where we go, hey, it's not us, it's those guys, right? So our system allows you to determine exactly which group that the marshal needs to go and have that interaction with. And when you use data, it makes the interaction even easier for the marshal, because he's taking guesswork out of it and sticking with data.
100% data versus opinion, right? The one thing lets emotions boil over, and the other one is just factual, right?
Right.
So we want to talk a bit more about what that looks like, but here's another set of stats and science that comes in, giving us an understanding of what's important to the player experience. And we're talking about flow and NPS. So NPS is the Net Promoter Score that many of you would have come across when an airline or a service provider asks you, how would you rate the service? How likely are you to recommend it out of 10 to your friends and family and peers, right? Where 10 is, that's absolutely, I'm delighted, I would recommend it highly, and 0 is, no, it's been terrible, never again, right? So the Net Promoter Score is a 0 to 10 rating. And what this company here has done, was also presented at the Golf Innovation Symposium, and it's from Players First. So Players First do post-round surveys. Specifically, they've got a long catalog of questions, but it all feeds that Net Promoter Score ultimately. And their data shows that you need to do 3 things well if you want the Net Promoter Score to be high. If you want people to love the experience and say good things about it, right? People want to feel welcome at a club. They want the flow to be good, not be held up, and they want to meet on-course staff. So it's that might be a little bit unexpected, meeting on-course staff, right? Because a lot of clubs are fairly short-staffed, or they position their staff around where play starts and ends, right? But players actually enjoy on-course staff interactions and make them positive, right? So what happens, Net Promoter Score shoots sky high. People would say, this was fantastic. I would recommend it highly to my friends and peers and colleagues. Also, restaurant visits go up. On the flip side, if players don't quite feel welcome, if the flow isn't good out on the course, and if they're not meeting anyone out there, they're feeling, well, I'm left to my own devices, I'm not being looked after, that's when the Net Promoter Score tanks. Like, it gets really bad. And those players would say, no, this wasn't a good experience, and I didn't enjoy it, and I wouldn't recommend it. Also, restaurant visits go down because, well, maybe they just had enough, or also assuming that if the flow wasn't good, maybe they went over time and have to go and slam the trunk. So here's another set of data, and this is literally millions of post-round surveys analyzed. 3 things we have to do well: make players feel welcome, good flow on the course, meet on-course staff, and the net promoter score shoots sky high. So we want to talk about how Florida courses are managed and the increase in traffic successfully. 20% increase is a lot. It is something that golf has dreamt of, but now we have to service those players well, right? So that we can make sure that it stays like this, because they will not be patient with us forever. If they feel like things are taking too long and the service isn't quite the way it's supposed to be, they will start to fall off again, right? And like we said earlier, we also have an obligation to make sure those 3 million new players who've picked up clubs and want to play are made to feel welcome. And we have to find a space for them out on the course where they don't get in the way, frustrating the more regular players. We have to make it happy, make them both happy. Yeah, here's a little quote: what gets measured gets managed. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So it's all about data. How do we know we're doing things well? Well, the 2 primary things that we need to do, especially if play is up, is traffic management and flow of play management. We looked at the science behind this now. It is a crucial player experience factor. The second challenge is cart path, geofencing compliance, to reduce wear and tear and making sure that our course can go the way, because we need to protect it, because obviously conditioning is the other side of the coin that we need to do well. We know that in Florida, it's particularly challenging because during the season where most of play happens, we cannot actually help our grass and turf along all that much because it doesn't grow. So we have to protect it, right? And we have to do what we can. So Joey, in terms of management of this, there's obviously a few things that we want to do, and we're going to talk about some technology that can help here. But what are the sort of things that you have seen and also seen the Florida clubs do around managing the flow of play well, and managing that on-course experience well, and at the same time maybe seeing that they can protect their turf, and how to do that?
Right. Well, first thing they do is they use our system, obviously, to manage their pace. These guys now are, you got a lot more tee times you're trying to squeeze in, and you're still trying to keep that player experience up. So using that data helps them find those extra tee times. As far as out on the course, our system will allow you to determine where players are using the course the most, so that your superintendent knows exactly where these hot spots are at on this course or on any course. So they know where to water more, where to fertilize, where they want to let some things grow, and so forth. So it lets us identify those high traffic areas on a course, and you can change cart paths, or you could change your geofencing to keep players out of those areas and let the course kind of recover. We do use a geofencing system that does send an alert to our 2-way device. We also have a passive system where we use a buzzer now, and the buzzer that we found works best does not shut the cart down. We don't really want to shut the cart down and disable it. We want the golfer to know that they're in an area and exit that area, rather than shutting the cart down. And we found that cart shutdowns frustrate players, and it adds, to the detrimental experience that a player might have on a course.
Yeah, you're making some great points, and I have seen my friends flip out if the cart gets cut out. They feel like somebody's stolen the car keys of their own car, and telling them what to do, and it's frustrating, right? And then
Yes.
people get laughed at and having to figure out a way to get out of the area that they didn't know they're not supposed to be in. So yeah, I think the system that alerts players, makes them aware, but still gives them a chance to get out is much more player friendly.
Yes.
So some of the things, we want to ensure that that we doing what matters every day, right? That is in any operation. We want to look at tweaking the right things that really matter to operationally, but also to the people that we're serving. And ideally, we want to track data that we know we're on the right track and we can keep improving performance. So when it comes to on-course, especially with increased traffic, flow and pace of play is key because that's such a big impact on the experience. We're going to look just now what that looks like in terms of data and some of the things to look out for. The goal is always for the courses to look their best and play their best, right? So conditioning, great. We want to protect the turf too. Joey mentioned some good points on here. So what you're seeing here is the two-way system spitting out a geofence alert if somebody goes over or off the cart path or into an area that's supposed to be. Again, that also beeps and makes the player aware, and then hopefully they'll be compliant enough to go back to where they're supposed to be. That is in terms of our system and how it works. So we have a number of front-end options, including walking golfers, which I think puts us in a bit of a unique offering position because there are more and more clubs that are encouraging walking golf, right? Also, it's something that's really seen a boost in COVID because a lot of the clubs had touch risk limitations for carts, and then obviously ended up with single riding and so on. But walking golf is a beautiful thing, and we want to obviously make sure that we keep the walkers on the map as well. One of the reasons too why we have so many of our clubs that are catering to walkers and with caddies and don't do any cart golf, because we've got a really strong solution for this. But in the cart space, there's a two-way that adds your more traditional GPS value, golfer front end, accurate yardages, and so on. But we also have a classic unit that gets installed in the carts that's hidden away and sends information to the club. But what all of these units do is they feed our system, and the system is an optimization system that then presents data and calculates risks and presents data to club management and to the course staff so that they can engage with the data as well as possible, make on-the-spot decisions that are right, and obviously also have data for longer-term planning and staff planning and focus and prioritization. So data changes the game. Many of you are using data in your daily operations, certainly in the finance department. Well, this is if you want a Google Maps of Waze in terms of golf course traffic management and on-course operations. So we're bringing data into that space. Obviously, great, once you have the data, you can also speak back to the players and make sure that they're aware and that they're mindful and that they're staying compliant. So here's a Florida club that has had a busy season, much like most of you. And this is what their course traffic looks like through the lens of our system. So we are tracking all the playing groups that move, and we immediately showing where there's a bottleneck, and also if there's groups behind that are held up. So in the traditional world, it's not easy to see where there are bottlenecks really, or where there's maybe a group pushing into another from behind because they are actually playing too quick. So our system calculates all of this. Our system also calculates the risk. Is a group's trend negative? Are they slowing down? How many groups do they have as a tail behind them that they're impacting negatively? Does this issue occur early in the round or late? Because obviously somebody who's already falling behind on hole 3 or 4, they can really ruin everyone's day behind them. Somebody who's 3 minutes out or 5 minutes out on the 18th, they're not going to do too much damage to the field, right? So our system calculates all of this and spits it onto a screen. Many clubs have got this on a big screen in the club, like a control room almost. They also want the players to see, because you can imagine the players don't want to be that pink or red group coming into the clubhouse because they get looked at, right? So it helps, it adds some self-policing, and ultimately what it does is, whoever's the play assistant can now go out and ensure that they have an interaction that's constructive and helps the players rather than shouting at them, which they hate. You have seen this in play at quite a few of the Florida clubs. How have you found them interacting, and what's it like? You're seeing that big screen on the course, on the Pro Shop wall with the live map. What sort of the feedback that you're getting from the club managers?
Yeah, it's actually I've seen it in person where I've been on some of the courses, and they're in the clubhouse, and I can see people come in, and one of the first things they do is look at one of the TVs where the map is up, and they're looking at the pace of play to see how it's playing today. You know, they're always curious how's our pace today, so they know exactly what to expect. You know, the course can actually see everybody moving around, and typically you'll go into one of these courses, and the golf pro or a GM or somebody will be actually looking at this map on a computer. They live on these things. They live in this data to manage their courses.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few. I hear this often, like that they want to see what's our tee sheet like from a booking that's coming in, like point of sale. Mm-hmm. That's what they're interested, and then they want to see what's happening out on the course. And the traditional way to manage this is obviously, well, let's get some bodies out there to see that there's no bottlenecks, and then we'll radio them, and hopefully the players won't phone into the clubhouse and complain. Well, you don't need to do that if you have that eye in the sky, right? If you really have the information that gets updated every second of every day, and it automatically feeds you and calculates you, makes these decisions for you in terms of who's a risk and who isn't. And the moment you have this information, you can really manage things with so much more accuracy. And over and above that, because there's so much data available, including building player profiles, especially at private clubs, that's hugely helpful because, as you know, there's always a few players that are maybe at risk of delaying others, and maybe they don't know or they don't want to know. So if you have data, you can maybe have these conversations and assign appropriate tee times to them without too much fuss. Also, it's really important to look at the breakdown of the week. You know, when are the crunch times that we really need to pay attention? How does our hole-to-hole profile look? Which are the holes that are where there's backups happening more often, and how can we adjust our setup potentially if there's a busy day ahead to make sure that there's a smooth flow out there? All of those things, if you know about them, yeah, Jim Lombardo from Earn Hill says, like, you can never know enough about your business, right? The more data you have, the better you can prepare, the more you can improve. And Matt Barksdale from Pinehurst, he says that the on-course sentiments is the post-round sentiment. So how you feel on the course about things, conditioning great, flow is great, well, you're going to feel great about the round that you've just played, right? So here's your sort of live map, and this is the data that's available. Each individual tee time you can check end of day or live, and then obviously also breaking down individual days, individual weeks, months, the whole season of data. This is extremely helpful when it comes to making staffing decisions, making focus on prioritization decisions, and also reporting to ownership or committees on some key questions. And do we care about the player experience? Is that important at our club? Yes, absolutely. Well, here's a way in which we can do it better. Okay, we want to move ahead and look at some of the tools and processes that the clubs are implementing. So geofencing is one of the items that we mentioned, because not only do we want people to move along the course swiftly and not get held up by others or not hold up others, we also want to protect the turf, because more traffic means more wear and tear, right? So the geofencing is very helpful, and the way that the Tag Marshal system does that, we've got a template-based setup so that a number of geofence variants can be drawn. It's very easy to do, and then they can be set to be active on certain days of the week or between certain times, or you can just turn them on as needed. Like if there's a big rain and you want to reduce play to cart paths only, then you can turn it on. If the course is recovered and things have dried up, well, switch it off, right? So it's really easy, and you the managers can also tie in alerts that are either high or medium or low, and then they can go text messages to people's cell phones or emails, or obviously ping an alert in the system. And in the two-way space, the players obviously get alerted too, so that they can stay compliant. And every single geofence breach gets recorded. So if somebody misbehaves, it's very easy to call them out. The passive version of this geofence buzzer, which is our classic tag in the cart that has, when a geofence gets breached, we've got a video here running with an example, somebody going off the cart path, it starts to beep and a little light flashes. I don't know if you guys can see that. Well, come off, back onto the cart path, it leaves you alone again, right? So this is very easy in terms of making the players compliant, but we're not taking away their freedom. Like, we're not slamming the brakes, and now the only way to get out of the zone is to reverse and try and figure out how to get out. I've seen guys push their carts out because they couldn't figure out how to do it, and it's just supremely frustrating. So you've now seen quite a number of these installed in the recent months. Like, what's the sort of feedback that you're getting from the clubs, Joey, in terms of the effectiveness, and also just does the install work? Is it easy to do? What sort of carts can it go into?
Yeah, it's they love the fact that it doesn't shut the cart down, but they still get the audio and visual alert to the golfer. Not to mention that they can see the data when there's a geofence breach on the map as well. As far as ease of install, they're very easy to install. We've got this thing now to where it's basically almost a self-install. If you have a maintenance guy on a course, it's very easy to install. 2 connectors really plug up to the power source, and 1 hole drilled into the dash, and that's it. You're off and running. It's a fairly easy install, and we can make them where they go out and they're almost plug and play at this point.
Yeah, it's very nice. I think especially also in the Florida context where you have a lot of private carts, right? So this is something that, it doesn't get in the way of the players, but you still have a level of control, right? Because for you to convince a private cart owner to have anything installed in their cart, well, you need to have a good reason, and they're certainly not going to allow you anything that will stop their cart, right? So here's a good middle ground. And also what we've done before is we have the geofence buzzer version installed in the club's own fleet, and the players or the members that have got private carts, well, they may opt, or the clubs may opt to not have the buzzer, but still have the tracking, right? So they can still track. And and the moment you have this data, that's really what changes your operation. But also there's a theft component in this, right? Because if you know when a cart gets removed, what was the club where we had we actually helped the police recover some of the carts that were stolen? What was the club? Do you remember?
I cannot remember the name.
It was a golf club of Louisiana, and all of a sudden the carts ended up in Dallas Fort Worth, which is like 700 miles away. And I remember the police detective said, "How did they get up there so quickly?" Well, clearly they were on a flatbed. I don't know if you're the best detective for this job. Anyway, we traced and tracked. And the club said, well, they've adjusted their geofencing to actually be switched on at night. Anything that moves immediately alerts security, and no issues since, right? Because golf carts are expensive, you don't want to lose them. Right. Another key opportunity once you have data and in terms of protection is looking at hotspots on the course with regards to cart and player movement, so that we know where do people go, where don't they go, where do they cut across, where are the hotspots that gets a lot of stoppages, a lot of cart movement. And this is key information for the superintendent to go and preemptively plan, protect turf, but also look at opportunities to save money, right? Because if there's areas on the course that nobody ever goes to, we've seen that Cranagolf down in Key Biscayne, that is an opportunity to save water. That is an opportunity to save labor. And it can make a big dent in your cost base very quickly. So, but in this case, our mandate is how can we help protect the course with increased traffic? Well, again, if you have data, you can really make this go further, and you can see issues arising before they become an issue, and you can go and protect areas before they become critically worn down. Also, many clubs now, having had this fantastic boost of additional members joining or additional play, they have got capital to spend, and some are making decisions on making renovations. Well, we've had Valhalla, PGA Championship post where Tiger Woods famously won a few years ago. They have based a lot of their renovation decisions on the data that the system has provided them and their architect, because they realized sometimes you just have to accept that players will cut across certain areas. So let's rather adjust our parts in line with this and maybe our holes slightly instead of having to police them. And also they looked at how can we make renovation decisions to certain holes to make our holes more attractive, but also make sure that our flow improves and the play experience improves around us, right? Not just looking at conditioning and how attractive is our design, but also making it form follow function, making it practical, right? And the data's helped them immensely in this. So another opportunity to help protect turf. Yeah, here's another live course view. This is what it looks like if you've got lots of carts out there, and it shows you immediately where the issues are. And also, if these are two ways, obviously the players would know you are now delaying others 6 minutes out, 8 minutes out. And it's relative to one another, right? It calculates this relative to one another, not in a static grid like some sort of more traditional systems may have done years ago. This is really the smartest way to look at your course. Joey, I want to keep us on pace here. So understand the impact on the play experience and measuring it. So we've got a bit of data here, and one of the things that we're seeing on this is basically a seasonal breakdown of individual days at a Florida course, and at the bottom right is what we call the pace distribution. Joey, do you want to have a quick stab at explaining what the pace distribution shows?
You call me, Bodo.
No. Okay, don't worry. I'll help you out. Just checking you're paying attention. So the pace distribution is the breakdown of pace of play, as in percentage of rounds that are faster than the pace we want to play to, which might be 4 hours, 4 hours 20, whatever it is. And also importantly, which of the rounds have gone over, what percentage of rounds have gone over, right? So here's 20 minutes or more over, 30 minutes over, 40 minutes plus 40 minutes over. That's obviously slow days, and that's groups holding up others. And that is where players get grouchy, right? So this is the breakdown across the entire season. So you can see in this instance, that is almost 85% on pace or within 10 minutes of pace, and only a very small fraction of rounds that are slow. Now, historically, this looked very different. So the number of rounds at this club that were 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes over were quite high, almost 50% in 2019. Now, what we're seeing with the system usage is that even though the traffic is up 20%, their performance is much better. Like I said, 85% on pace or within 10 minutes, which is fantastic for the players in terms of flow. So imagine on the road, you're padding 20% more cars, you're expecting slower traffic. That's just logical, right? But here with the system usage and the system live management, and also using data to make better decisions, even though the traffic's higher, the results are much better. So 20% more traffic, average round times come down as well as a byproduct, but ultimately what matters is how can we ensure that the vast majority of our players get through here without any holdups. So this is actual data coming from a Florida course, and that shows you sort of long-term tweaking of and looking at improvements. And the beauty is that the cost of the system is fractional versus the value that gets created. And just to show you what that means, we've got private clubs that are saying, well, if I can get more capacity out there safely and everyone else is happy because the results are showing the way in terms of people are getting through quicker, I can add more members to my club without them having to fight over tee-off times. So what's that worth to us, right? And obviously, if you're a daily fee operator, you can add capacity, and that immediately has a big green fee impact in found revenue. And additional people mean additional meals sold, right? It compounds very quickly. Joey, you've been to Erin Hills just recently at a PGA Ambassador event. What was the feedback that you received up there from an ROI point of view? What are things that they measure? What's important to them?
Yeah, so Jim spoke a little bit about recognizing the difference in tee times versus the morning tee times versus the afternoon tee times. He was able to take a look at that data and realize that the morning tee times he could run at 11-minute intervals, and the afternoon tee times needed to run at 12-minute intervals. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it actually allows him to get in 2 more tee times throughout the day, which results in, quite a bit of revenue just for green fees. And of course, that's, $250, $300 a round. So it's a very quick return on the investment, and it analyzes that data very quickly. What he was able to determine from it is the guys who are staying on site usually tee off in the morning, and they play, sorry, I got it backwards. The guys who are coming in tend to play a little quicker, and they play in the mornings. The guys who are on site are usually the guys that tee off in the afternoon. They get up, they have breakfast, they meander around for a while and have some lunch, and then they go out and they tee off. They're in no hurry. So he was able to use the data to determine this.
Yeah, and I think they also design their guest experience in line with that, right? So
certainly.
One of the questions that I would ask her, what if I'm a busy course and my intervals are already 8 or 9 minutes? What are the opportunities? Well, it's the same. So one of the things that we advocate, for instance, is to run your course to variable goal times, meaning what if we can speed up the morning considerably, because a lot of players are fighting for that first round out. I don't know if you're one of those or if some of your friends are. And sometimes if they can't get it, they won't come play, right? Because they really want to play quickly. Well, we can offer this experience, first round out experience, play this course that normally plays in 4 hours 10 in 3 hours 20, like significantly quicker. But we can now design the tee sheet, and we can design the goal times to allow this to happen 5 or 6 times in the morning. So you would then choose the players that would sign up and say, I want to fly through your course, and give them that speed round, if you will. And they actually want to pay more for that even, right? So now, because they're moving quicker across the turf, you can then add an additional tee time behind them when it matters, before 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And you've made a lot of people very happy because they're getting a quick round in, right? So this is the opportunity and some of the strategies that you can deploy once you have management data. Also, end of day, where sometimes a club or may be at risk of players not being able to finish because of twilight. Well, if your whole day is half an hour faster than it was, you can add a few more people out, and they will definitely finish the 18 holes, right? So here's another opportunity for capacity. But going back to our original question, how to manage this increase in traffic more? Well, we need to look after the player experience in terms of flow on the course. We have to just get control here as much as we can, but also we have to look after our turf and look at ways in which technology can help us protect our turf so it can go the season. And we hope that you found this insightful. And obviously there's quite a few Florida clubs that are having great results with this. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to let us know. Joey loves going down to Florida. So he's not far off. And so we're based in Atlanta, obviously that's down the road. And we're here to help, and obviously delighted also to be partnering with the North Florida section and the team around Jeff and Daniel and everyone. We're here to help where we can. Are there any questions on the Q&A? Let me just see if there's any that's come through.
Do we have any questions?
Here's one. From a resort course, how much revenue have your resort partners typically made in a season by adding additional tee times? Yeah, so the revenue is obviously incremental, right? So normally we work on what can we achieve in year 1, year 2, year 3, and how can we keep getting better. So there's tee times revenue if you add more capacity safely, making sure that everyone has a better experience, but you can still get more people out. That's the holy grail. But green fee capacity also means heads on beds. It also means more people are going to stay with you, eat at your restaurant. So it's additional resort revenue. So to give you an example, at Whistling Straits, and that's the math that they've shared with us, by controlling the space better, they've been able to add tee times to the value of $320,000 in a year. But the resort revenue that this has brought them is almost 3 times that, right? Because people are staying over. So we not normally see in year 1 an improvement and a found revenue opportunity and savings opportunity of $50,000 to $100,000. And year 2 and 3, that's when you're really tweaking the optimization. I hope that answers the question. But yeah, it's certainly a case of you give us $1 for the system, we give you $5 or $10 back. So it's a good solution to consider. Are there any other questions? Let me see. Chat. How do you address the ROI question? Do pros ever make changes to the whole setup based on data or heat maps? Yes, absolutely. So if there are holes that consistently causing bottlenecks, well, let's consider adjustments. Like we have had clubs take out bushes or trees. We've also had clubs add hazards just to make a hole go a little bit slower and to buy some time for the next hole. So once you have data and you can really analyze it, that's when you can make decisions like this. The easiest one is obviously the setup decision, but then there might also be some low cost conditioning and turf adjustment decisions that can be made based on data. So yes, it's a great tool to also get the golf pro and the superintendent to speak the same language a bit more, right? Because they ultimately here to serve the players, but it's not always easy to bridge that because the superintendent's life gets so much harder if there's more traffic, right? So you want to bring the two worlds together, and data helps to do that. I think we're over time now, Daniel, and I don't want to go any further. We've got to stay on pace. If we're those guys that want to be efficient, I'm German, I have to be efficient. But, I think I'm happy with what we've covered.
Okay, if that's all our questions, well, thank you, Bodo and Joey, so much for presenting for us today. If you are watching the webinar, make sure we will receive a post-webinar quiz, and you have to pass with at least a 70% to earn 1 MSR. If you are paying attention, you'll have no problem passing the quiz. For everyone watching the recorded video on our website, just reach out to me and email me at dcalderon@pgahq.com for a copy of the quiz. The email will also include today's webinar recording, our presenters' contact information, and a link to register for upcoming webinars. Thank you so much once again, Bodo and Joey, and I hope you all have a great day.
Super, thanks Daniel. Thanks
Thank
Joey.
you,
Thank you.
Joey.
Thanks,
Daniel. I hope you get to hit some balls later.
Thank you.